Promissory estoppel is a powerful legal principle that can enforce promises even when no formal contract exists. This legal doctrine ensures fairness when someone relies on a promise to their detriment. Imagine being promised something important, acting on that promise, and then suffering a loss when the promise is broken. Without a formal contract, you might think you have no recourse. This is where promissory estoppel comes in. The concept originated in equity law as a way to prevent injustice. Unlike traditional contract law, which requires consideration or an exchange of value, promissory estoppel focuses on fairness and reasonable reliance. It prevents someone from denying a promise when another person has reasonably relied on it and suffered harm as a result. For promissory estoppel to apply, several key elements must be present. First, there must be a clear and definite promise between parties with a legal relationship. Second, the promisee must have reasonably relied on that promise. Third, the promisee must have taken action based on the promise. Fourth, the promisee must have suffered economic loss due to the broken promise. And finally, the promisor's failure to keep their word must be unconscionable or unjust. Let's look at a practical example. A movie producer hires an artist to paint sets, promising to pay a portion of the profits. The artist completes the work, only to discover the producer never had a distribution contract and cannot pay. In this case, a court would likely find that the producer cannot deny their promise and would order compensation for the artist's work. Another example involves retirement benefits. If an employer verbally promises specific retirement payments to an employee who then retires based on that promise, courts may legally require the employer to fulfill those payments throughout retirement. Several landmark court cases have shaped how promissory estoppel is applied. In Central London Property Trust v. Hightree's House from 1947, a landlord who had reduced rent during wartime was prevented from claiming back payments for the reduced period. In Cohen v. Cowles Media Company from 1991, a newspaper that promised anonymity to a source but later revealed their identity was held liable. And in Drennan v. Star Paving Company from 1958, a subcontractor who revoked a bid after a contractor had relied on it was bound to their original price. How does promissory estoppel differ from traditional contract law? While contracts require formal consideration or exchange of value, promissory estoppel enforces promises based on reliance and fairness. Contract law regulates formal agreements, while promissory estoppel prevents injustice from unfulfilled promises even without formal terms. Defendants facing promissory estoppel claims have several possible defenses. They might argue there was no clear promise, that reliance was unreasonable, that no actual harm occurred, or that the statute of frauds requires certain promises to be in writing. All 50 states in the U.S. recognize promissory estoppel, though requirements vary by jurisdiction. Courts generally apply this doctrine when necessary to prevent injustice, balancing formal legal requirements with principles of fairness and equity. Promissory estoppel serves as an important safety net in our legal system, ensuring that individuals cannot make promises they never intend to keep when others rely on those promises to their detriment. It reminds us that sometimes fairness and justice require looking beyond formal contracts to the real impact of our words and commitments.